And the ones, the really funny little ones, no one was interested. Now people are buying and interested and investing in these sexy-looking sports cars, not because they necessarily, in their first instance, want to do the right ethical thing, but we need to make business decisions that help us make the right moral and ethical decisions. So if I said to everybody here, I've got £100,000 and I'm really keen to invest it ethically, I would want to hear this, well, yeah, perfect, because ethical investments, natural capital investments, if you like, are so good at the moment, it's the only thing that's making money. And I would go, great, it's obviously the thing to do then. It's so hard for non-experts, who I'm always speaking to, non-experts to think, well, I am concerned about the planet, I do my recycling at home, I do offset my air miles, I do these things, but I'm so comfortable with the way life was 10, 20 years ago. I'm frightened to take this risk ahead. I will take the risk ahead if somehow my pension investment is going to be a big money maker for me because it's invested ethically. I constantly run into that. Have you got any guidance for me? Not that I'm going to give you £100,000 right now. But how do we make the culture change that it's easy for us and we want to make these good investments, make these good decisions?
Sure. Well, firstly, all communications have a driver, and this is ABC of communications. Typically, the driver that people like you and me, or maybe more like you and me, have been using for a long time is fear.
Yes.
And there is a problem with that, because you can congest the fear. T.S. Eliot and others have said so. But I think what's happening, unfortunately, which is also wrong, is we have flipped completely from the fear argument to the greed argument. Somehow thinking that let's all just be greedy, and sure enough, environmental investments will be number one. And I can tell you point blank that is wrong. That is not the case. Because with $2.5 trillion worth of externalities, there is not a snowball's hope in hell of ever being in a situation where only environmental investments are the best. By definition, right? You externalize costs, you internalize profits. Yeah. How can it ever be the case? So just looking at greed alone as a driver is no more a recipe for success than looking at fear alone as a driver. It's got to be some combination of the two, greed and fear, which make things work. But at the same time, also we need to recognize that even though we have great leadership happening nowadays, I mean, a company like Puma, for instance, goes out and understands its entire value chain and maps out and measures and reports its externalities. Outstanding. A company like Infosys in India, despite being beaten by TCS in performance, creates human capital for free, positive externalities. Unilever wants to actually halve its footprint while doubling its sales. I mean, there are lots of companies with actual performance and good intentions moving in the right direction. But the challenge is this, these are still leaders, and we have good leadership. In fact, I would say we have enough leadership, but we don't have enough followership. Because just the forces of greed and fear will not create enough followership. You will still only end up with 5% of the economy being run on sustainable grounds, and it will be a different 5% because they won't last very long. Because those $1 trillion of petroleum subsidies, oil and gas subsidies, $650 billion of price subsidies, $100 billion of production subsidies, and $275 billion of agricultural subsidies, these are basically engendering not a green economy, but a brown economy, the opposite. So you need, of course, the forces of greed and fear, but on top of that, you need good changes in regulation. And those regulation changes that I'm arguing for are not regulation changes at the macro level, will not be made by, presidents and prime ministers, and certainly will not be made by 190 representatives of presidents and prime ministers sitting on a beautiful beach for 1.5 months. Wow, it was great. I mean, I was there basically because I love beaches. So the point is, that's not going to make change happen. To me, of course, the second reason I was there, apart from the beach and nicely from the flat that I rented there, the second reason I was there was that, oh my God, when else will I get a chance to message what I have to say to 45,000 people in government? That's the reason I was the second and probably more in-person reason I was there. So we need to recognize these realities and then create changes in regulations. But to me, the regulations that need to change, the policies that need to change, are not macro policies at the country level. They are micro policies at the corporation level. These are the policies that are introduced, for instance, in the case of finance, by the G20 finance ministers or treasuries. Policies introduced in advertising by the advertising associations. Policies introduced by the accountancy regulators. And that's, I'm delighted, I just come here all the way from Singapore, burning up a few more miles, but nicely covered in Australia, thank you. But that was a meeting at Singapore where we created the Tbli Business Coalition, which is basically an externalities coalition. This coalition is a who's who relevance in this space. World Business Council for Sustainable Development, the President was there. Global Reporting Initiative, the President was there. Conservation International, the Chairman was there.
Yes.
Achim Steiner beamed in, Joachim Zeitz beamed in.
Yes.
We had the local environment minister. We had the entire business community of Singapore. Purpose, let's figure out ways in which we can measure and standardize the reporting of externalities. Because when you start doing that, and when you start reflecting these in your financial statements, just like directors' bonuses or contingent liabilities and so on, only then can investor analysts respond. Only then can consumers respond. Today we don't have the micro regulations in place to bridge that gap between leadership and followership. That's the challenge.
And then finally, Pavan, just one quick, how long have we got?
In my opinion, not very long. To change the course of our trajectory, basically we are hitting planetary boundaries. Some would argue, not me, that you've actually hit the planet boundary. And frankly, when I have to be on Skype with my daughter, whose flat is just next to that building, that crane, that dangling crane in New York, was next to my daughter's flat. A couple of months earlier, I happened to be in Beijing, where I managed to get my flight, despite the day being the day of their largest cyclone in 60 years, simply because my friend, my local host, had the wisdom to bring his car. There were no taxis, because all taxis were taken. So when I look at this kind of change happening, and of course, the Chinese do describe it as climate change, and the Americans simply don't, because the word doesn't exist.
Yes.
But the point is, there is something afoot, and I feel that we have little time. I feel that we have probably 8, 10, 15 years to respond, changing the trajectory of resource use and the economy towards the green economy.
Thank you very much. And I feel that, as we all know, we all change when we have to. So maybe you're saying, this is the time, so it's time to change. And, you know, we're the people to do it. This is it, you know, why occupy, you know, why not?
These are the rules of business. Nobody's going to tell us to change these rules. We have to engineer a change.
Thank you very much, Teddy. Thank you very much, Pavan. Thank you very much.